Okay, yes, we have some sound. If you can let me know if you can hear me now, that would be amazing. I think we're all sorted now. I can see some sound on my screen, so if you can just let me know if you can hear me, then we're good. Yay, we have sound. Okay, so welcome to tonight's live class. We are going to be doing an engraved keyring. So I'm hoping that what you will learn in this class will help you with all of your engraving projects. We're going to look at different ways of doing engraving, and we're going to learn all of the tips and tricks. So this is a pro class. I'm going to be moving a little bit faster than we do in our beginner classes. If I'm going too fast, you're welcome to let me know in the comments. If I don't see it, one of our lovely admins will. So as always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And this class is proudly sponsored by Cricut and Logitech. So let's jump into it. We are going to start in Design Space. And you will notice in the class write-up, we have shared a project. So we've shared a link for a project. And that is what I have on my canvas. So this is called a foil or engrave full starter. So you can use this with foiling or you can use this with engraving. We're obviously going to be using it with engraving. So one of the important things to remember with engraving with your Cricut is that the maximum thickness of your item is 2.4 millimeters. So I go with 2 mils. If you're looking for acrylic blanks, you're going to look for 2 millimeter acrylic blanks. I think you also get a 1 millimeter, which is obviously a little bit thinner. You could also work with those. So I will just show you when we move over to the machine how to oopsie, I didn't mean to move it there, sorry. So I will just show you when we move over to the machine how to gauge if it's going to work or not before you start. Okay, so as always, we're going to start with a shape. So you're going to choose a shape that is closest to the shape of your blank. I'm just going to change the color so it's easier for us to work with. So I'm obviously doing a round acrylic keyring and it is 5 centimeters. So we're just going to change that to 5, and this is going to be our what do you call it? Our base that we're going to work with. This is going to be basically our guide that we're going to work with. Okay, so I'm doing something simple. I'm just going to do a name with an initial behind it. So we're going to insert text, and I'm going to change that to white. And then we're going to insert again. So I'm wanting to use 2 different fonts, and I'm going to be using 2 different styles of filling our engraving. I just lost my mouse. Oh my goodness. Okay, we have it back. Okay, so I have obviously done a couple keyrings with names, and I've found fonts that work for me. You can obviously use any fonts that you want. What I've found works nicely is if you have your initial as a bold font, then to have a sort of flowy font as the name that runs through it. So that's my personal preference. You can obviously do this any way that you like. And this is not only going to work with names, you can do absolutely anything. Okay, so I have it bookmarked. And it is this plantain, this one. I will probably butcher that. So we're just going to change this to an R. You can see it didn't change, so it's still thinking. So if you didn't know, you can obviously bookmark your font. So let me just show you. If you hover over it, you'll see this little section that you can click, and it will actually bookmark it for you. Okay, so there's the one that I want. And I'm just going to resize that slightly. I'm going to put it here, remembering that at the top of my keyring I have a hole, so I don't want to make it too big. Okay, then what I'm going to do, so I do like this, but to give it the style that I want, I actually add an offset to it. So I'm going to click here. Hello to everybody that is joining. I'm seeing lots of hellos in the comments. Appreciate everybody joining us. Okay, so you can see on our offset we have this little section that says corner. If I click it, you can see I can have a rounded corner or I can have a curved corner. So I want to go with the more squared corners, and the reason for that is obviously I want to keep the original look of this specific font. So I'm going to change this to 0.15 and I'm going to say apply. So you can see there are our two different, so this is obviously our offset, this is our original one. You can see that this is a lot more solid. It just looks a lot better, I think. So I'm just resizing that to make sure it is as big as I want it to be, and then I'm going to get rid of my original. Now I'm going to work on the name that's going in the center. So I'm going to change this font as well, and I'm going to go with something that's a little bit more flowy. Yasmin says hello. She is new to Cricut South Africa. Welcome. I'm so glad you have joined us. For anybody else that's new, welcome. And if you didn't know, we do these classes every Thursday evening. We have different levels. So we have beginner, we have advanced, and we have pro. Tonight is obviously a pro class, but they are loads of fun, and I think even though it is a pro class, it's still very easy to follow along. So join us every week. We would absolutely love that. Okay, so I'm just having a look at the type of font that I want to use. So what I do want to do is I just want to have a look and see if I change that to a small letter, how does that look? Let's go with something like that. Okay, I like that one. That's very cute. So we're just going to make it smaller. We're going to slot it in here, resize, get it looking how we want it to. So let me just zoom in so you can see a bit more. And I am quite happy with that, I think. Let's just move this over slightly. So what I do find is when I align stuff like this center horizontally, sometimes it looks off. So for me, that looks off, even though it is perfectly centered, it just looks a little bit off. So I prefer to move it. So with fonts like this, you will notice that they overlap. Okay, and this is a bit of advice for if you're doing engraving, whether you're doing foiling, anything, any function that you're using, wherever it overlaps, this letter actually carries on into the next one. So what will happen is it will either cut into the next letter, it will engrave into the next letter. So I'm just going to change this so you can see what I mean. Okay, so if we zoom in some more, you can see it carries on and it actually goes into the next letter. So what we're going to do to counteract that is we're going to say combine, and we're going to weld that. You can see now it becomes one word where everything flows into the next. It doesn't actually overlap it. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to change this back to basic cut so it's easier for us to see. We're going to add another offset, and this time I think we'll go with 0.1. Let's have a look and see. We can maybe even go a little bit smaller. That works. So we're going to say apply. Okay, let me zoom out again. And we are going to take our offset that we've created. We're going to hold down the shift key, grab our initial, and we're going to slice that. So remember, when you're slicing, you can only do it with 2 layers. You can't do more than 2 layers. Okay, we're just going to get rid of all of these slice results because we don't need them. And that's going to give us a nice little cutout. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill this. So let me change these to Engrave just so you can see. If we went ahead and we engraved this now, this is what our end result would look like. So let's change this to white so it's easier for you to see. This is what it would look like. So it's going to give us an engraved outline. And that might be good for some functions, but when you're doing something like a keyring, you want it to be a little bit more prominent. You want to be able to see it a little bit more. So we're going to use two different methods. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to use our Engrave full starter. So if I zoom into this, you can see this is a whole bunch of lines. Somebody has very nicely created this for us, where they've taken the time to stick together a whole bunch of lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this back to basic cut quickly. I'm going to change that to pink just so that I can see it better. And I'm now going to make this as small as I can. So how small you make this is going to depend how far apart you want your lines, or it's going to determine how far apart you want your lines. Obviously, the bigger I make this, the further apart the lines are going to be, the more gaps there are going to be between them. The smaller I make it, the closer those lines are going to be together, and it's going to give us a more filled out look, basically. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my Engrave full starter and my initial, oopsie, and I'm going to slice that. So now we have one of our slice results. We can change this to Engrave, and I'm just going to zoom in for you. You can see that it is now a lot more solid. You can see it's got all of the little lines, and it's not just giving you that outline. So we're going to delete this. We don't need it anymore. We're going to stick this back in place. I shouldn't have moved it, but it's fine. We'll figure it out. There we are. Okay, I'm just moving this across so we can see it better. Now we're going to work on our other fill. And for that, we're going to be working with the name that runs across. So this is another way that you can, sorry, I'm just trying to align this. This is another way that you can sort of fill it out, make it a little bit more bold. Still not aligned. That looks good. Okay, so I'm going to select our name now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create offsets, but I'm going to create a negative offset. So basically I want the offset to be inside of the name, not outside of the name. So I'm going to say minus 0.01, and I'm going to say apply. And you can see that it automatically selects the offset. So if you look on the side panel here, you can see that my offset is now highlighted and not my original item. So I'm going to add another offset. And I'm going to keep going until it is as filled out as I want it to be. So you can do as many or as little as you want. So I'm going to just keep going, make it as filled out as possible. And you can see that's pretty solid. So there are a couple little places in between where it's not going to do it. But that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these offsets now, the ones that we've created, including our original, and we're going to say attach. So remember, welding takes multiple items and makes them one solid item, and attaching takes multiple layers or multiple functions and makes them work together on the same mat. So by attaching them, I'm keeping them together, so when I say make it, it is going to make it exactly as we see it. So Rionette said if you do the fill at a bit of an angle before slicing it, it looks less rigid. So that's a very good tip. I will definitely be trying that. Okay, so we have our name that's attached perfectly. We now want our initial to also stay where it should be, so we're going to grab both of those and we're going to say attach. So now when I say make it, everything is going to stay exactly where it is. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our initial guide that we created. So remember, you want this to be as close to your item that you're engraving, so you want it to be as close to that shape as possible. We again are using an acrylic blank which is round, so I think we are pretty on point. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change this to pen, so we want to draw with it. It doesn't matter what color you use. I'm going to show you in a second what we're going to be doing with that. So when we are busy engraving, I'm going to show you some of the different engravings that I've done in preparation for this class. And if you are using a mirror acrylic blank, you can actually engrave on the back and it will show through onto the front. So if you're going to do that, then what I would suggest doing is you're actually going to flip this now. The reason for that is you want to be able to visualize what it's going to look like when you say make it, instead of when you say make it, you now have to figure out what's centered. So we can also just grab this, say align center horizontally. You can see that's perfectly centered. So we're going to be engraving on the front of our blank, so I don't need it to be mirrored. I'm just going to align that again, and you can see that looks good. Okay, so now we are going to say make it. Okay, so I'm just getting my machine on and ready. So remember, very important, you can only engrave with your maker. So I have seen that there are some sort of off-brand things that are sold that say you can engrave with your Explore. Maybe you can, but you will be doing damage to your machine, so please do not try these things. The Maker is capable of doing this because it has a cut pressure of up to 4 kgs, whereas your Explore only has like 400 grams. So using these sort of off-brand things or pushing your machine to the extremes that it shouldn't be pushed to are actually going to damage your machine in the long run. So this is only exclusively for the Maker machines. Okay, we're going to say make it. And you can see now I have my little pen or drawing that I've created. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place this exactly where I need it to be. I am then going to line my engraving up, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on my mat. So we're just going to switch over to our mat quickly so we can see. Okay, so I have literally just uncovered this mat. I've done one engraving on it and I did it right over here. So I've already tested that I don't actually need tape on it. You can see I'm going to flip my mat around so that where I place my acrylic blank, it's going to be on a super sticky part of the mat and there's going to be no chance of it moving. What I would suggest you do to be safe is actually tape your blank down, especially if it is a very big engraving. There's going to be a lot of pressure, there's going to be a lot of like pushing around on your mat. Then I would suggest taping it down. Okay, so I'm just taking our piece off. Okay, so if you were doing the back, which I will show you once we've got going, if you were engraving on the back, you wouldn't remove this little plastic covering. You would actually stick it down onto your mat with the plastic covering. Obviously you don't want to mess up your mirror acrylic surface. We are going to be doing the front, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so in design space I went one row down and I went completely in the center of the mat, which was here. So I'm going to place my blank in the exact same place. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm using the hole to line up with the line. Okay, that looks pretty straight. I'm just having a look. Yep, that's pretty straight. I'm then going to use my brayer. Sorry, the wind is busy blowing the door and it's super distracting for me. I'm going to use my brayer to push that down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to just flip it over and I'm going to press it from the back just to make sure that it is absolutely adhered. Again, I am using a brand spanking new mat and I have already tested this, so I will not be taking it down. but I would suggest that you do. So in this case, how would you tape it? You would take your tape and you would stick it along the top and along the bottom. Along the top and the bottom, just to make sure that it doesn't move when you're engraving it. Okay, so back on our design space, we can see that we have our blank placed exactly where we need it. So another thing you can do is you can count the blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can count the blocks on your mat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's going to tell you that it is exactly where it needs to be and you are good to go. So what you're going to do now is, obviously you don't want to use the pen because that's going to be your first function. So you're going to click on it, you're going to click on the 3 little dots, and you're going to say hide selected. So all that was for you to be able to place your engraved element exactly where you want it, and you're going to get the best, you're going to get, sorry, this door is so distracting, you're going to get the best placement for your engraved item. No more guessing, super simple. Okay, so we're going to say continue. We're going to connect to our machine. So I actually thought somebody was trying to get into the room because I know that the doors sort of move. If one door's closed, the other one blows. And let's just put this off and back on again. So I know that if one's closed, the other one blows. So I actually put something heavy in front of it, but I obviously didn't push it hard enough. Anyway, okay, so let's see. And we are connected. Okay, so you'll see that a lot of our materials are grayed out here, and the reason for that is because they are not compatible with engraving. So you can see on the side the function is engrave, which means that I can't use the cardstock for intricate cut setting, I can't use the infusible ink setting, because obviously you can't engrave on those items. So it will be grayed out so that you can't choose it. I see everybody saying that it is everybody's saying that it's cold all over. I saw that there's a really bad cold front coming for the whole of South Africa, so there's that. I don't doubt if Durban is this cold that everywhere else is freezing. So we're going to look for acrylic, and we're going to be using the acrylic 2mm, so you can see it's thick and thin. There's 1mm and 2mm. Obviously you can't choose 3mm or more than that because you can't engrave on that. Okay, so we have it selected. You can see at the bottom it tells us exactly what tools we need. So we're going to load the Engrave tool in clamp B, and you can see it's got a little 41. So if you look on the side of your engraving tip, you will see it actually also has the corresponding number. Okay, so we're going to grab our engraving tool and we're going to put that into our machine. So there it is. I don't know if you're going to see, I actually just used it just before the class. I don't know if you're going to see that it's actually got the number. It's very bright. The camera doesn't want to pick it up. Okay, so that's going to go into your clamp B. Now remember I said to you I would show you how to know whether the item you want to engrave is actually going to fit. So it's quite simple. You can take your item and the silver bar, you're just going to slide it under. If it can clear that comfortably, then you are good to go with your engraving. Okay, so make sure this is down nicely. And we are going to let that do its thing. Okay, so while that's busy engraving, I actually had some prepared so that I could show you. So we are going to be doing today, or we are doing, this type of engraving, which is on the top of the mirror acrylic. So you can see it is nice and bold, and you can see I've used the exact same methods that we are using today. So everything is nicely filled in. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it closer. So the initial has the lines, and then the name actually has the sort of offset fill. So that is the top of a mirror acrylic blank that I've done. And then if you want something that's a little bit more subdued, you could go for the back. So this is actually engraved on the back of the mirror acrylic. It's not engraved on the front. See there. And then I've done another one where I've actually filled it in with paint. So this is also mirror acrylic, and I've filled it in with some black paint. So that one's a bit harder to see because that's super bright. So those are, yeah, that one's really hard to see. I don't know if we can see that. So what I'll do is we can actually fill one of these in with paint. I don't know if we're going to get through the engraving, so that is one thing. When you're using this method, it is going to take a very long time for it to engrave, because remember, it's got to engrave each of these little lines individually. I think we did maybe like 5 or 6 offsets for the name, which means it has to engrave each of those offsets individually. It is going to take a lot longer than if you were just doing an outline, but for me personally, the results are totally worth it. I absolutely love the more filled in look, so that's my personal preference. So mirror acrylic, I actually got these from quite a few different places. Most places that sell keyrings have mirror acrylic, so yeah, just maybe Google it. You should be able to find them pretty much all over the place. Just obviously make sure that it is the 2mm and not 3mm, because I have had some that are 3mm. So if you have a look at any of these, they've all got the sort of mirror backing. You would be able to engrave on the back of them. And then from this one, I'm not sure if you can see it, but around the edge there's actually like almost like a sticky look, and that's from sitting against the mat. So that's why I said if you're going to be doing it from the back, you want to keep your cover on the front. Only once you're done engraving, then you're going to actually peel your cover off of the front. Okay, so we're just going to fold this in just so you can see the difference. I think here it will be a lot easier for you to see, because you know what it looks like before I put the paint in. So that's obviously going to make it a bit easier. So I have some wet wipes, and I have some black acrylic paint here. You can obviously use any color. I have a gold one somewhere that also looks really, really nice. You can also even fill it in with a white if you want to, or you can use a color that sort of goes with whatever it is, whatever color your acrylic blank is. So Carol asked, are those blanks Cricut makes, or where do we get them? So no, these are not Cricut blanks. These, oh, so sorry about that. These are actually just blanks that I found online. Again, any place that sells your normal acrylic will usually sell your mirror acrylic. So I actually keep a makeup brush, and that is to sort of dust off and clean the acrylic and other projects that may need it. I actually also have one for my machine to help dust my machine, and I found it very helpful. So if you ever see them sticking out of my tool holder in my machine, that is what they're for. Okay, so we're going to fill this in very quickly, just so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. So if you have any questions, anything that you're not sure of, anything I've missed out on, you're welcome to leave it in the comments, and then I will try and get to them. So you can see I'm just painting over it, and I'm making sure I get into all of those little lines. And then I'm going to grab my wet wipes. So Yasmin, what machine do you have? I think I missed that comment, or if I'm not sure if you did tell us what machine you have. I think that might help us to better advise. Wow, there's crazy wind here at the moment. I'm not sure if you can hear it out there. So now I'm just going over it, cleaning it up. And I will admit, personally, I don't love this look. It's not my favorite. So when I do engraving, before I remove my item from my mat, I actually take a piece of tape and I stick it on top to basically get all of those little pieces off. So you can see I've actually engraved on this side. You can't really see anything, and that's because I did tape first, and then I actually flip my mat upside down, and then I remove the item that way, so that any of those little leftover pieces will fall off onto the table and hopefully not onto my mat. Another thing you can do is you can use your scraper. So I have one somewhere here. I had one. You get an extra large scraper, and that's really good for actually cleaning your mat. So this is one of the reasons I don't love this method, is because number one, if you're using a wet wipe like I am that has little pieces that come off, it actually gets stuck in your engraving, and for me it's just super messy. And mirror acrylic is always really terrible to clean, but you can also do this with normal acrylic, so you don't have to just do it with this. You can do it with normal acrylic, and that is obviously a lot easier to clean. So what you're going to do now is you're going to wait for this to completely dry, so you're going to get as much as possible off, as much as possible, because you obviously don't want paint stuck on it afterwards. And then you're going to go and give it a wash, just with some soap and water. Just give it a little wash, and you're going to sort of clean up. You can see all these little edges around it where it's a bit messy, obviously from the paint and this. You're just going to go and clean that up. Once it's dry, it's also a lot easier to get rid of your little fluffies in it, if that makes sense. So for me, I don't love the fill. It does make it a lot more prominent though, so using paint as a fill. I don't absolutely love it, but that's my personal choice. You can see it's got a lot of little fluffies in it, and it's super messy. So Yasmin said it took her forever to figure out welding. She said, is it just her battling, or is the struggle real? So Zelda gave some really good advice. She said we have some lovely beginner classes. So if you go onto our Cricut South Africa page, Cricut South Africa YouTube, you will see all of our past live classes. We have a lot of beginner classes. So we actually did, last week Soraya did a lovely one on HTV or Arnon 101. She covered all of the basics of Arnon, all of the things that you need to look out for, how to work with it. And the week before I did one on sticker vinyl. So those were very good classes to get you comfortable with the basics. And then we have obviously a lot of beginner ones coming up, which will also help you with different things. So again, even though this is a pro class, we spoke about a lot of different functions that you can use in Design Space. There's a lot of tips and tricks that you can take away from it. So even if you can't do engraving specifically, you can use some of these tips and tricks to help you with your other projects. So there's always something in the classes. Also, one of the things I like to remind people is that the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to waste a little bit of material, or it's not going to be, exactly what you want it to be. but you're going to learn, and I think that's absolutely the most important thing, is that you learn while you're doing this. So I'm not sure if anybody here was actually part of one of my previous engraving classes. Somebody had asked me, how do you line up your stuff on your mat? So my answer was that I just wing it, and I used the same process that I used today, but I didn't have that draw circle that I hit on the mat. So I was actually just taking, you know, the inside pattern, and I was sort of lining that up, figuring out where was the middle. So since that class, I've obviously learned this new trick, where I can now use the draw function to create a little template for myself that I can actually work with on the mat. So we're all learning every single day. There's always something to learn. There's always place to improve. And I think that's one of the things that's actually just so beautiful about this entire creative journey of ours. So Yasmin said some vinyls don't stick well either. Sorry. One of the things you have to remember is that not every surface is suitable for vinyls. A lot of it has got to do with how you prep your surface. If your surface is not prepped properly, you've got to remember we all have oil on our skin. Every single one of us. If we touch a mirror, we will leave little fingerprints. If we touch the TV, we will leave little fingerprints. That's from the oils in our skin. So if I take, let's say, a glass and I haven't properly prepped that glass, I'm now trying to stick vinyl onto something that has oils from fingers. If it's a glass that I bought from the store, how many people touched that glass before me? So there's oils, there's dust, there's all of these things that are now attached to the surface. So if your surface is not prepped properly, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to stick your item onto that surface. So number one, make sure your surface is prepped properly. Number two, and this is something that we covered in our class 2 weeks ago, is make sure you're using the correct transfer tape. That is very, very important. If you use a strong grip transfer tape with a material that doesn't need it, you are going to battle to get that vinyl to stick onto the item. Another thing is just the surface, really. So if you have a textured surface, it's going to be a lot harder for that vinyl to stick. So if you have a very nice flat surface like this, where it's nice and smooth, it's going to have a nice surface to adhere to. But if I now go and try and stick it on the back, which is now rough from my engraving, it's going to be a lot harder, because the vinyl is only going to stick to the highest points. So it's going to stick all over the top, but it's not going to go into these little ridges, and I'm not going to get a good adhesion. So there's some things to remember with your vinyls. Susie says she has dog and cat hair everywhere. I promise you, I have the exact same problem. There's constantly cat hair on everything. Yeah, I don't have dogs, but I do have cats, and yeah, they leave their hair everywhere. My absolute worst is when I do an iron-on project and it is beautiful, and then I see there's little cat hair sticking out of the side of it. So I completely get that. So I wonder if we're almost done with our engraving, so it is just doing its little bottom pieces. I'm hoping I'm going to get to show you the end result, and then I will see if I'm able to get the tutorials on Design Space, just to show you sort of where to find them. Candace says her adopted rescue kitten is watching the live with her. I feel so special because I always have the best viewers. I have kitties and I have the beautiful twins that like to watch our lives, and it just makes me feel so special. So I'm just having a look here to see if I can find these quickly, and then I'll be able to show you them once we are done with our engraving. Okay, I have found them and I will definitely show those to you. So while we're waiting, I just want to talk a little bit about our challenges that are currently on the group. So we had a very good response to our tea time with Cricut Essay challenge last week. It was loads of fun. So this week we are doing projects for women that inspire us in honor of is it Women's Month or Women's Day? I think it's Women's Month, I'm not sure. And then we've also got the Friendship Day one, which is really fun. So you get to challenge your friend to make something using a specific color, and then they get to challenge you back. So that is a lot of fun. If you haven't joined in the challenges yet, you definitely should. They are for everybody. It is not skill based, so you are welcome even if you're an absolute beginner to just give it a try. It's a nice way to step outside of your comfort zone and try something new. Oh no, please tell the twins that they are deserving of more than just a simple keyring. I will make them something amazing. I'm not sure what yet, but I will make them something amazing. And that's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. I made these all for the class. I had no use for any of them. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keyrings from the last 2 classes, and 2 bookmarks. I am actually just overloaded with keyrings at the moment, but I think they are super fun. So we spoke, I think, when I made the other keyrings. I've actually got them right here. So this was the ones that we did in the beginner class, the Be Happy Sunflower ones. So I lost my train of thought. I don't know what the point of my story was. Oh yes, when we when we did that class, I spoke about other uses for keyring blanks. So I had seen somebody had actually used them as price tags at a market. So every item that was, let's say, 50 Rand, they had them on a little hanger with a price tag. And then I've also seen people using them as the age dividers. So you have like 0 to 6 months, or what's it, 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12. And then you can actually hang them onto the hanger so that it separates your cupboard. So I thought those were pretty cool ideas. Okay, so we are done with our engraving. Okay, so as you can see, or can you see, there's a lot of dust on there. So what I like to then do is I take a piece of tape, just normal old tape, and I just stick it on, and you can see it's actually not going to stick because it's grabbing all of those yuckies. Can you see it? You can't really, but it's fine. And that's just to get most of this off. It's not going to get all of it off. Okay, and then I just flip it around very quickly, remove it. You can see that I do have some, it's actually stuck onto my mirror acrylic, unfortunately. The mat was way too new, but that's fine. And then I'm just going to dust it off. And there it is. So you can see that the light's very difficult. So that's one of the things I found with mirror acrylic, is it's super hard to photograph. It's very hard to show on video. I'm going to try my best. There we are. So you can see it looks really full, and it's nice and bold, and it's beautiful. So that is our engraving, and these methods again will work with, let's just get rid of that, will work with anything that you want to engrave. Yeah, it's universal. So we're just going to switch over to Design Space quickly. I know this is not a beginner class, but we do have 13 more minutes, so I will try to assist. So on your Design Space homepage, this is when you log into Design Space, you will see this. So here you will see we've got beginner projects, we've also got how-tos. So if we click on the how-tos, you will see that there are videos that you can watch, there are written guides and checklists. So here there is an introduction to Design Space tour, there is a materials cheat sheet, how to use transfer tape. So if you're more of a reading learner, then this would be great for you. You can actually print these out and you can learn them at your own pace. You can also, if you want to, keep them in a flip file. They are super helpful. There's lots and lots of them, and you can see that there's lots of different things here. So there's make with vinyl, make with paper, paper flowers, and each of them has videos as well as projects attached to it. So that is very, very helpful if you are feeling stuck, or you feel like you need a little bit more support in making projects or learning Design Space. Soraya says, say cheat sheet 5 times fast. I will if you will. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our class. Thank you very much to everybody who has joined, and thank you to all of the people in the background who make this happen. So I think very often we as the teachers get thank yous, and the people in the background don't get the appreciation that they deserve. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of the people that support, that help with ideas for projects, to Kim for giving up her Thursday nights and allowing the twins to watch us. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate every single member that takes the time to join us, to engage with us. It really does make what we do so rewarding, and it makes it feel like it's worth it. So thank you very much. I cannot wait to do this with you again soon, and I hope you enjoy the